A big topic, relative clauses and relative pronouns. There's no way to make this super short or super simple. It's a little bit complicated. So hang on, get comfortable wherever you are, and we're going to go through it step by step, but it will be a little bit more than the basics because relative clauses and relative pronouns can get complicated. So we'll start off looking at it in English. Let's get ready to stretch your mind. This is a complicated grammatical topic, and yet I know you can do it. You're smart. Let's take a look at relative clauses and relative pronouns. So we'll start easy. We'll do it in English. I can tell you the man bought a car. A very simple sentence. And you might ask, which man? So I can expand my sentence and say the man who lives next door bought a car. That's a relative clause inserted into a simple sentence. The word who is a relative pronoun. The relative clause gives us more information about the man. The word who refers back to the man. So the who is a relative pronoun. If you really are interested in complicated grammatical language, the word man is the antecedent. It's the word to which the relative pronoun refers. We can do lots of examples in English. The teacher who wrote a letter to my parents has a meeting with the principal. That sounds like trouble. Who is the relative pronoun, and it refers back to the antecedent teacher. The book in which there is an amazing story costs $10. Which is the relative pronoun. It refers back to the book, the antecedent. In all of these relative clauses inserted into normal sentences, you're simply adding more information about a noun. The waiter, whom I saw in Chicago, lives in Detroit. Whom refers back to the waiter, and we get more information about the waiter. We get the information that I saw in Chicago, right? So relative clauses get inserted into a sentence, and they give you more information about a noun which happened earlier in the sentence. Same thing in German. Der Mann, der mit mir Karten spielt, wohnt in Berlin. Okay, the man who plays cards with me lives in Berlin. So der is no longer the, instead it's who. It's referring back to der Mann. Der Mann, der mit mir Karten spielt, wohnt in Berlin. Notice that the verb inside the relative clause, the verb between the two commas, goes to the end. Mann is the antecedent. Der Mann, der mit mir Karten spielt, the man who, so the der is referring back to the man. So, a couple things to think about as we get into this topic of relative clauses and relative pronouns. First of all, the verb will go to the end, not of the sentence. The verb will go to the end of the relative clause. So your relative clause is set off by a comma at the beginning, a comma at the end, and between those two commas is the relative clause, and the verb will be the last word inside that clause. All right, second thing to think about, der, die, das. You're used to thinking of those as definite articles, right? The. Definite article, the, right? Der, die, das equals the. Well, no longer. Der, die, and das can now mean things like which, that, who, or whom. So think about that a little bit differently, and let's look at the next examples. In addition to the verb moving to the end of the relative clause, another thing that makes this a little confusing is that you are used to thinking of words like das, den, dem, der, and die as being the. And they are most of the time. But when we have a relative clause, you need to think of das, den, dem, der, and die as who, which, that, or whom. Okay, so get used to not thinking of them as just meaning the. They are no longer simply definite articles. They can do other things as well. So, der Bleistift, der auf dem Tisch liegt, kostet 50 Cent. The pencil, which is lying on the table, costs 50 cents. So der here means which. The pencil which lies on the table. Der Bleistift, der auf dem Tisch liegt. Another example. Der Lehrer, der oft mit meinen Eltern spricht, fährt im Sommer nach Nebraska. The teacher, who often speaks with my parents, travels in the summer to Nebraska. So the der means who. The teacher who often speaks with my parents travels to Nebraska in the summer. All right, one more example for this point. Mein Onkel, den ich gern sehe, wohnt in Leipzig. My uncle, whom I like to see, lives in Leipzig. Here we go. The den means whom. Mein Onkel, den ich gern sehe. My uncle, whom I like to see. Now, of course, in good American English, we don't use whom very often. We use who for everything, but technically that's supposed to be a whom. All right. Okay, so as we think about this a little bit more, there's a couple issues that arise. We got to think about the difference between who and whom, right, in English. And that's kind of shaky because we're Americans. We don't speak the king's or the queen's English. But who and whom are two different things. Think about that. We also got to think about this weird phenomena of a relative pronoun preceding a definite article. What? What does that mean? Here's what it means. It's going to look like the in a row, two thes in a row, but that's not what it is because our definite articles are now functioning as relative pronouns. So beware of seeing two in a row. It's not the. Here's a great sentence. Die Frau, die das Buch geschrieben hat, heißt Frau Droste-Hülshoff. All right, so we got this die das thing. It's not the. The first die is the relative pronoun, the woman who. So the woman who has written the book is named Frau Droste-Hülshoff. So you got two der die das words in a row, but the first one means who and the second one means the. The woman who, die Frau, die das Buch geschrieben hat, the woman who has written the book. Here's another one. Das Kind, das das Klavier so gut spielt, heißt Johann. So it looks weird, you got two das's in a row, but let's think it through. The first das is referring back to the child who plays the piano so well. Das Kind, das das Klavier so gut spielt, heißt Johann. One more. Der Mann, den die Kinder lieben, ist Lehrer. So you've got den, die in a row, but the first den is whom, right? The man whom the children love is a teacher. Ja? Der Mann, den die Kinder lieben. So the first of the two is the whom. Der Mann, den die Kinder lieben. The man who the children love. All right, good stuff. Let's add to the mix a little bit more. Prepositions. When you put a preposition in front of a relative pronoun, okay, with which, from which, in which, right? The house in which, the envelope in which, the bag in which, the man with whom I spoke, the woman with whom I spoke. We're going to put a preposition in front of a relative pronoun. Watch this. Let's do some English examples first to keep it easy. The man with whom I speak, the man with whom I play cards. The woman from whom I received an email, the woman from whom I got $5. The house in which my friend lives, the house in which my grandfather grew up, the tunnel through which I drive, the tunnel through which the train goes, the table on which we eat supper, the table on which I do homework, the party after which, well, that could get a little bit sketchy. The party after which I went home, the party after which I fell asleep. I'll let you imagine that one. We can do it in German. Der Kuli mit dem ich schreibe. Mit dem, with which, the pen with which I write. Der Kuli mit dem ich schreibe. Dem refers back to the Kuli. We have a preposition mit in front of it. Das Haus, in dem ich wohne, liegt in der Goethestraße. The house in which I live. Right? In which, in dem. Das Haus, in dem ich wohne. Dem refers back to the house. We have a preposition in front of it. Der Tunnel, durch den der Zug fährt. The tunnel through which the train travels. Durch den, through which. So, den refers back to tunnel. Durch is the preposition in front of the relative pronoun. Der Tunnel, durch den der Zug fährt, ist sehr lang. I told you it's not really that simple. It's not really that easy. It is a complicated topic. However, I know that you can do this. You can master this topic. You can become proficient at relative pronouns and relative clauses. So I'd say watch this video 2 or 3 more times, and we'll definitely talk about it more in the future. Until then, I would say goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen. Tschüss.